a lot of that for us is about, a website shouldn't, you don't buy a car and just leave it in the garage, right? You've got to drive it, you've got to use it. For that, you need fuel. So we're kind of digital fuel for your business, if you like. And that's one thing that I'm really gearing our content around is what's going to be useful for people, what's going to be beneficial. How can we help as many people as possible without giving giving the keys to the cupboard. The ideal length of a short video is 45 seconds. So like a product ad or something like that.
Yeah.
Any more than that, you've got to have something really gripping to keep people on for 2 minutes. If you don't make that one decision that affects one person, it could affect 10 or whatever. So you've got to make sure you're making the right moves.
Hi everyone, you're listening to the Unrelenting Drive podcast, and before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know I started this podcast because over the years I've had hundreds of the most inspiring conversations of my life with small business owners, and they really helped me grow and scale my own business and get my mindset right even when times were really tough. I wanted to capture those conversations and make them available to other small business owners who are following in my footsteps, and I've just got a small request. If you enjoy this episode, if you find it really inspiring, if you find it helps you in your own business, then please just like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The more subscribers we get, the more we can invest in making the podcast better. So enjoy the episode. Hi, you're watching the Unrelenting Drive podcast, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Sam from DeType. Sam, thank you for joining us. Could you let the audience know what you do?
Good to Nishi. I'm Sam Sayer. I've been running DeType now for 11 years. I started originally working in branding and advertising. Freelance, mostly around the West Midlands. Picked up my own clients along the way and eventually started my own business, from the sort of back bedroom, the classic story there. That then grew into working with retained customers, building a team, and here we are now. So there's 8 of us currently. So,
amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So before we really go into DeType today, it'd be good to understand how you got to where you were, and I know you briefly just covered it now.
Sure.
What happened in terms of education? Did you go to university or did you just leave straight after school?
No. Went to college for a year. I did multidisciplinary design because I wanted to do technical illustration, which they said, well, it's not really a vocation anymore. So I did the next best thing, which covered 3D, 2D, fashion, textiles, which is interesting, but I wanted to be on a Mac designing things. I was always doodling on my school notebooks, drawing logos, either band logos as it was at the time, or just doodling away. So I went to college. It was the wrong course for me, really. I was kind of quite clear what I wanted to do. And by that time, I'd started DJing, was being asked to design flyers and record sleeves, things like that. So I left college after a year, didn't qualify from college, went to work in a printers. So I worked from the ground up. So I learned the sort of old school artwork, discipline of artwork, creating stuff that's ready for print, which is a bit of a lost art really these days. So worked from there, and just sort of followed my path there really. At one point it was a case of, do I follow the DJing path? A lot of people I'd grown up with and worked with early doors became household names. But I'd kind of got into the design world by then. It was more reliable income. It was, it's where my kind of true passions were. So that was it really. I worked with a guy, I can't remember what the connection was actually, but he used to book me as a freelancer. So I got a lot of experience working around agencies in the West Midlands, for quite big ones, working on big brands like Pepsi. And then I took a role in a branding agency as a senior designer there. Working on big brands like CSC Champagne Bars, West Cornwall Passy Company. Okay. Quite a diverse mix, mostly in the F&B, sort of food and beverage industry. Wasn't really happy there, but I learned a hell of a lot. And I kind of learned, from working as a freelancer, I learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work in an agency. And so there's always a vision of well, hang on, if I was doing it myself, how would I do it? What would be different? I learned a lot. I learned a lot quite quickly as well. I kind of progressed fairly quickly in those few years. Then took a sort of longer term contract as a creative director. And then went from there really. I'd moved away from Leamington where I grew up. At one point I was commuting to Birmingham and Leamington from Kettering, which is awful.
Oh right,
The M6 is not a fun motorway. I don't think it'll ever be a fun motorway.
Well, you can always use a toll road.
Oh no, it's before that. It was honestly, it would take me an hour to get to Birmingham and then an hour to get through it to the agency. It was awful. But I learnt a lot. I was always sort of clear on what I wanted to do and the direction I was going in, but it's how to get there, right? That's the challenge. work doesn't just fall off on your lap. You know, you've got to sort of build relationships. There are two clients actually who've been with me for longer than DeType's been in existence, but people I've met from the sort of freelancing world. So that's really good. But yeah,
sorry, and so DeType is 11 years old.
11 years old as a limited company.
When was its 11th birthday?
April, just gone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's being good at what you do, being the technician, as the E-Myth says, and then running a business are very different things.
That's quite interesting. Like I always do like to talk about business books. So what have you read so far? Like what and then we'll talk about your favourites.
I've got a lot of books.
Okay.
I've only finished a few of them. The E-Myth. So the E-Myth was the first real business book I had. I liked it because it was quite small. So I was like, okay.
You know what? Everyone talks about the E-Myth revisited, but what does that mean? There was an original E-Myth.
I think so. I think they, from what I understand, I could be completely wrong. I think they then kind of rewrote it with modern principles in mind.
Because it was a very old book.
Yes. I think also that, but also, I think things had changed a little bit, but I think they gave it more relevance to anyone rather than a specific industry. That's what I think, but I'm not sure.
Oh, right. Yeah. So what was the original industry it was based on?
Don't know, but it's a very old book. I mean, the principles are timeless, I guess.
I don't think the E-Myth is... I sometimes think about the E-Myth, and I'm just wondering, like, what did I really take away from that book? And I think the takeaway point's been the PowerPoint selling process.
Yep.
Because we've implemented it in our business in one way or the other, and I've now, even when people are utilising it on me, I recognise that, and like this is the world standard for how a sales process should work.
Yeah.
But I was 7 years into this business when I first and we'd already had a team when I first read it, and then I was like, so I can't really say I learnt the importance of consistency from it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I learnt the importance of not being the technician anymore.
Right.
But would I have if I'd read it in my first year potentially?
You know what, hindsight is a thing, right? The first time I read it, I mean, I've always been like, I don't know, anti-business isn't the word, but I liked what I did, and I was like, well, you don't have to be Mr. Business to do this. Yeah. Reading the E-Myth for the first time, I was like, oh God, really? I've got to do these things. Like, so I left it then. I started working with a business coach for the first time.
How long ago was that?
Oh, that was 4.5 years ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I was like 5-6 years in by then. And she said, like, give it a go. And I read it, and I was like, I've not done any of this stuff. Like, I've got so much to do. I'm the technician. I've got to. I'm the one doing the good stuff.
Who's your business coach at the moment?
I'm currently working with Gary Crosby.
I know Gary. Coach. Yeah. So he, because we had Chris Wardle from Eldril on a couple of weeks ago, and he works with Gary as well, I guess.
Yeah.
So I used to work with an action coach as well. Right. So, and like in your first week, you get that folder, and in the folder's the E-Myth. But I don't. Yeah. Is that a standard thing through?
Oh, I didn't get that. No.
Oh, okay. Fine.
Where is it, Gary? It's. I've worked with a few. I've picked up good things from each, and actually, I've worked with different ones at different times for different things.
So when you say you've been working with a coach for 4.5 years, have you worked with Gary for 4.5 years?
No. I first started working with Jackie Elmore, who.
Oh yeah, okay.
I've got so much time for, and has always been had my back with things, business or otherwise. She's a real person to get your head level. So thank you, Jackie. She's the first one I worked with, and it was a whole new world for me, and I was just like, it's just overwhelming, I found at first. Now I really look back and I get it. I've worked with a couple of different ones. I want to give Liz Chilton a shout as well from 144.
I've heard of her actually. I think.
She really helped me when I was looking at my sort of vision and mission and that kind of thing. It's mad because I kind of do and help people do that for other clients, but doing it for yourself is very different. So
we do something similar with our clients because my coach helped us. Like one of the things my coach really helped with was like to build what we call a signature solution. Okay. So I guess that's a signature solution. Yeah. It's like some sort of diagram where you can just explain something really, really easily. And there was a whole methodology behind building the signature solution. I was like, hang on a minute, this worked really well on me. I could use it on other people. Yeah. So I always kind of feel like, while we're not a business coach, like if I learn anything useful when I'm being coached, then I try and implement it on our clients if there's an opportunity to do that. I'm
the same. I'm kind of like a sponge in a lot of ways, but I want to then share the knowledge. I'm very much a case of, if I've learned something, who else can I benefit with? And I do a lot of business networking, and with a few people in our group, we've done the same kind of things. We've had, we've given advice.
We met in BNI, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
And are you part of any other networks at the moment?
Yes, I'm part of a group in London. It's just changed the name. It's called Catch 22. What's it called now? Connections, I think.
It's a slightly better name.
Yes. Well, it started in 2022. There's a whole sort of thing around that. But, that's grown. That's really, really good. I think I find you start networking for the business, you stay for the relationships, and you stay long term for the bigger picture. So I'm seeing people. I've been networking for 5.5 years now, and it's nice to be able to sort of help and nurture new members into it, who some of them are older than me, been in business longer than me, but actually, you're always learning stuff, right?
What do when you say the big picture, I guess, so the relationships are your friendships, but they're also lucrative business relationships. But then the bigger picture is about up-leveling the industry, or...
I think so. It's... I mean, the network group we're in, people, it's like Marmite, people love it or hate it. For me, it's the only one that's worked because it has the structure and discipline, which I kind of inherently don't like, but it works, right? And it's actually helped me to be more structured and disciplined in my life, which has then helped my business and everything else. I've been rigging it for too long, I think, before that.
I think with BNI, like, you tend to get business owners that are in a similar place to you. Yeah. Like, I think they tend not to be really, really big businesses, because like the owners of those large businesses might network somewhere else, where they talk more about scaling issues. Whereas but I find with BNI, you also do have business owners that have employees, so there's that commonality, that thing where you're talking about similar challenges.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's people in all different sort of paths and points on their journey in BNI. And it's interesting, when I joined, I was just like, I was soaking it all up. I was like, wow, like this is blowing my mind. I think you were the first person I had a one-to-one with. Yeah. And it completely, honestly, it really switched how I looked at my business and what I was doing. And, so thank you for that. I mean,
you know what, ironically, like speaking of BNI, we got Rob from MSC Electrical. I think they're walking around in the loft at the moment. That's what those tapping sounds are knocking. So hopefully no one will come through the ceiling. But
I think, the values of recognition, relationship building, stuff like that. I've always been a sort of people pleaser, and a very, very switched on guy called Al Tepper described himself as a reformed people pleaser. So I think in your early years you want to impress people, help people. Of course, you want to help people, but actually you've got to be aware of what your own goals are and what your own path is, and not to say you've got to upset everyone. But, I kind of existed to be available for anyone at any time for anything. And that's detrimental in the long term. I've certainly found, you've got to...
Yeah, I did a really good video a while ago after I watched a video by a guy called Dandapani. Oh, yeah. So he's like, I think some sort of Hindu monk or Buddhist monk, I don't know. But he was at ZeroCon in San Francisco, and I watched it, and he was talking about energy vampires. Okay. And because
movers.
Yeah, I've heard that saying too. Yeah, and he's like, it's quite good because he talks about how do you deal with an energy vampire without messing yourself up, and first thing he says is identify, are they an inherent energy vampire or a transient one? So transient is people that are just going through something and that do genuinely need help. Yep. And then the inherent energy vampires are the people that are always gonna be like, regardless of how much you help them, regardless of what's going on in their lives, they'll still want your energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a good video because it's 45 minutes long, although the video I did on that video was like 5 minutes long. But because
say 55 minutes long.
yeah, and it just comes down to two things. Identify which type of energy vampire they are.
Yep.
And if they're an inherent energy vampire, give them a task to do.
Okay.
And and then the next time they come to you, ask them if they've done that task.
Okay.
And they won't, and then you use that to say, hey, I really want to help you on this, but I can't until you've done that task. So do you mind just going away doing that task? And then they'll come back to you, and you'll be able to say, hey, I really want to help you, but did you do that original task? And it's like, oh no, well, you got to do that, because inherent energy vampires will never complete the task.
Absolutely, yeah. It's flipping it back on them in a positive light, right? Yeah,
yes, exactly, yeah. We can move on to the next stage of this relationship. Just do that one little thing.
I think, it's all to do boundary setting, right?
Yeah.
When I first joined BNI, business wasn't great. I knew I had to jump out of my comfort zone, and I did. The first one I went to was Kettering Business Network, and I got there. It was a really cold February morning. I got there, I was like, I don't know if I can get out of the car. I was like, I've got to do it. I've got to get out. And went along. Hated every minute of it. Not because it was bad. It was a great meeting, but it was out of my comfort zone. Didn't realise I had to stand up and talk, introduce myself. I've never been one for blowing my own trumpet. But through that, I met a couple of people who then took me onto another network group, and then onto BNI, and I learned a lot. And I say this is absolutely no shade on Kettering Business Network. It was, that was the right one for me to do, and it was a great starting point. I should have gone to more, it's you realise when you're in a tight situation, you've got to do something different, right? You've got to go out your comfort zone.
What's so how long ago? Well, that would have been 4.5 years, right? When you first started networking.
5.5, 6 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned like you were in a tight situation back then, which you're not anymore, I guess. But what caused you to get in a tight situation?
It was beginning of the year. Things were always quieter. January, January and August were typically always quieter months because people on holiday, people giving up again. Maybe marketing budgets have been spent. But I wasn't doing any marketing at all. It was all word of mouth. We built on reputation, which is, impressive. It felt good for me. But then you're only going to get so far on that, right? You've got to be doing external activities. So outbound, inbound, everything. We were doing none of it. So networking was the first real marketing we did. We dabbled in Facebook ads, a little bit before that was little success really. But yeah, it's about building a networks, and that's one thing. Obviously we've got work off referrals, which is great. It's testament to what you're doing, but it's only going to go so far. It's not scalable.
Plus it's unpredictable,
not scalable. Hence, I've got to do something different, and really put myself out there.
I mean, there's businesses out there with the mantra, a referral from every client from a referral, and then at that point it's no longer word of mouth. They're actively going for those referrals, which means they're actually putting their marketing energy into generating the referrals.
Yes.
So then that referral marketing, in my opinion, is actually marketing rather than just accidental word of mouth.
Yeah.
I think it takes effort, because at first you've got to make sure the customer's happy, and then then you've got to get really comfortable asking them repeatedly for that business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then repeat, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've taken a real big angle on content now. I went to a seminar last year with Marcus Sheridan, who wrote the book They Ask You Answer. So it's all about building up content that people need to know. So it's not selling, it's giving advice or answering questions, which makes complete sense. So he was a pool guy in America, in Ohio or something like that. And he completely flipped the lid on that whole industry and loads of other industries since, because he built pages and pages and pages of content of, should I pick a fiberglass pool or a concrete pool? What are the benefits of each? So floods of information. Oh, these guys are really helpful. And that was just fascinating to me, because I've always, people always looking for answers, right? People type questions into Google. People want to know more or learn more or understand, if they're buying a website or looking for an accountant, they need to know what do they need to get out of it? Because I think a lot of the time people don't even know what they're asking. It's a case of, things aren't right, I need to change it, but what's the best thing to get out of it? So we've been building last year loads of content around all the common questions we get asked, this versus this, things like that.
So what kind of content, like FAQs? And
Not so much FAQs.
videos?
How to write the perfect blog post, right?
Yeah.
So, research, structure, using H1s, H2s, H3s properly. They're not styling. Well, they are, they do style the text, but it's about hierarchy and it's good for Google. So, how to process your images properly, all that kind of thing. So, most people have written blogs, but have a proper structure to it? Have they got a conclusion? Have they got, stages of it? So, lots of useful tools that when we're producing, done a blog module for a client, great. Here's a guide on how to use it now. And that's been really powerful for us to say, read this article on it.
So, actually, before I go into my next question, because it kind of leads on to that, but so what's the full range that DeType, what's the full range of services that you actually provide?
So, primarily websites, but we come at it from a brand and design angle. That's my background. And, we were designers building websites at first. We didn't have any developers in the early days. Now we've got 2 full stack developers. We come from the real marketing angle. So it's about the emotion, it's about the tone, it's about the look and feel more than anything. Websites need to, our mantra is form and function, right? So it's got to look great, but it's got to work. It's got to deliver. It's got to deliver leads. It's got to be fast. It's got to be well optimized. Websites, the main thing. Web and brand are our top 2, but we're building in content plans as well. So when I talk about content plans, that's social media posts, not managing your social media for you, but giving you the content to share. So if we've written some blog posts for you, that can be split into 3 or 4 social media sound bites, or a podcast or something like that. So it's giving you all the tools and templates to do it yourself, or we'll help you with a strategy and plan to deliver that. A lot of that for us is about, a website shouldn't, you don't buy a car and just leave it in the garage, right? You've got to drive it. You've got to use it. For that, you need fuel. So we're kind of digital fuel for your business, if you like. So helping you then make that website grow and perform. That's the key thing. People talk about brochure sites, and you should never have a brochure site. It needs to be doing something for you. Maybe it's, for help you win tenders. If that's the case, you need to build case studies, you need to build content around it. Brand, web, that's the main bit, and content. So those 3 pillars. That's our mission moving forward now. We used to do all sorts. You do anything any ask you for. We're quite clear in what we do and what we don't do. We partnered with Spring Hill Marketing for SEO. It's such a different beast. I remember going on a course 6 or 7 years ago and thinking, I'm out.
Well, we had Chris on the podcast last week.
Okay, yeah, right.
So I guess this will follow on from that. But and he was quite extensive in terms of like what they do on the SEO. I think, Ellie, did he say he had 400 processes just for SEO?
Yeah.
That was
see, this is it, right? We've got enough just doing the websites. We've got a 27-point go live checklist, right? And people think, oh, have you done the SEO as well? I was like, well, which bit of it? So actually, I don't know if you mentioned this. I've been asking for a long time, right? I need something in my proposals, I need to talk about SEO. We don't do it, but we need to talk enough about it so they understand it's a specialist thing. We used to lose prospects because we do SEO as well. No, but we partner with someone who does it, so you get the best of both then.
I'm always a bit nervous about people that do everything.
They tend to do one thing really well and bolt the rest on.
Yeah, like going to a place which has got everything on the menu, or compared to when you go to a restaurant, they just got like 4 or 5 things.
Absolutely. So in terms of, we can help you with any kind of marketing through our network. We partner with a lot of specialists as well, copywriters.
So how does it work in terms of your relationship with Spring Hill Marketing? Like, do you build the site and then they, like for every site you build, they'll go in and make sure the on-site stuff?
We do a certain amount. So we came up with a diagram together. Like I say, I was sort of asking Chris, like, I need to show like the scale of what you do. It's like, well, there's lists and things like that. It's like, well, I'm visual, so I started a diagram. We had quite a few Zoom sessions sort of tweaking it. And it's a big kind of web, starting with your strategy that leads to content, and then the content's on your website, social, off-site content. So on that diagram, we highlighted, well, here's the bits we do. So we do this site optimization, sitemap, content, so content modules, I'll say. But it all depends on your strategy, right? And I remember when I first started working with Spring Hill, the first thing is they impressed me with like a report of where we are and where we could be. I was like, brilliant, I've never seen that. Most SEO agencies at the time were like, yeah, we'll get you on page 1. It'll cost you this much. I was like, don't think it's not a guaranteed thing. So through that diagram, we kind of figured out, right, well, which bits do we do and which don't we do, which bits to pass on to Spring Hill. And when we very first worked on our site, they non-indexed a load of pages. I was like, well, why is that? Well, it's diluting your strategy. If you're looking for more web content, web clients and brand clients, let's turn the other noise off and look at these. I was like, that makes total sense now. So, there's a danger of, it's good to understand SEO to a point for yourself and do what you can.
How long have they been looking after your SEO?
4 years now.
And where are you in terms of?
Page 1. Page 1 in Kettering, page 1 in Northampton. It's always a jostle for the higher up spots because, you get ahead and someone else gets ahead and so on and so on. So, but all of it is building on content silos. So, and that's what's led us to look at offering content as a service, because it's kind of key to what we do. And actually, we had a lot of clients saying, "Oh, who does your social media? Who does your content?" Well, we do it, or we work with outsource talent to do it. So, it's for us. It's the emotional side of the website, that's what ties in with brand. In fact, we started doing websites because as part of a brand piece, we'd always do a homepage visual, and then it'd go to a development company. And I suppose in those days, there tended to be web developers and then designers, and it was there's a big disconnect between the two. We do visuals, they go have a website built, we're looking at it a lot, hang on, they haven't followed the brand guidelines, this is not right. This can't be that hard, we can do it ourselves. It is tough, it was a massive learning curve. But because we came from it from the user journey angle, that was the sort of differentiator, I suppose, for us. UI and UX is a well-known term now. But yeah, it's the sort of psychology behind it, the buying journey, the story behind you and your brand and making that come to life on your website. Every website should have a homepage, about page, services and contact as a minimum. But actually, what are you trying to say? What's your value proposition? Because that's something so often missed on a website.
Well, this is something we've kind of learned the hard way over the years because I guess like most people who are watching this know, I've been creating content for quite a while. Yeah. But then getting people to convert off the back of the content, I guess at least once a month or a couple of times a month, we'll get a good quality lead, come along and say, hey, I've been watching your stuff. I really want to talk to you about this, and that's great. But the other side is there's a whole thing about getting people to hold their hands up. Yes. And for us at the moment, I think it's got to be based around a webinar. So I created a webinar called "What is your business really worth?" Okay. And but that's our 5th webinar, I guess, because we had a load of others. One was how to create an exit strategy. The foundations of a £1 million business. There's quite a few that kind of flopped. Okay. Or we were attracting people, but the wrong kind of people. Okay. Yeah. Because sometimes we'd get especially with how to create an exit strategy. There was people who who had just pretty much given up, or no, it was either people who were just about to retire, which don't make the best clients because they're just about to retire. Okay,
switched off a bit already.
Yeah, exactly. Or there was people I hate my business, I just want to get out. But just people not liking their business, that's fine because you can make a change and get them to like it. But if they've got to a point where they've already decide they just want to get out.
Do you know what? I've been through all those emotions at different stages. It is a roller coaster, isn't it? But having a plan, that's the key, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Plans can change, right? But having a plan is the one.
Yeah, the content in itself. I think we did perfect that, but then the next bit's hard as well, and I think I mentioned this in one of the other podcasts, but I've really changed the way I look at marketing recently because the best business book I've ever read, listened to on Audible, in my opinion, is called Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Okay, I've heard of it. It's my massive pile of books I'll never read.
And it's Jim Collins isn't a business owner. He's a professor of business at maybe it's Harvard or one of the big institutions. But essentially, they do this study, and he's got a research team, and they do a study, and they pick 48 good companies from the NASDAQ, the US stock exchange, and then they pick another 11 companies that were better than the 48 good companies. And the whole book is a study in terms of what's the difference between these 11 companies that are the best and the 48 that are still better than most businesses you'll ever see.
Okay.
And it covers quite a few things, but one of the things that really stuck with me in that book, I mean, I've made so many notes on it because that was one book where I probably took away 5 good points.
Okay.
Whereas a lot of the time I'll read a book and I'll be lucky to take away one.
Yeah. That's why I could have, like I say, I'd vibe off something. I thought, I've seen a clip of someone. I thought, right, I'll get the book, and you've got to know why you're getting the book, right, and what you want out of it, I suppose. Yeah,
and I think the one that really relates to marketing, that one good point that really relates to marketing for me is it's called the Stockdale paradox. So Jim Stockdale, who was a US Navy admiral who decided to fly a fighter mission over Vietnam. And he got shot down and ended up in the Hanoi Hilton, which is like the Vietnamese prisoner of war camp.
Yep.
And he was there for 8 years because he got shot down at the beginning of the war and ended up imprisoned for most of the war. And he's one of those people that took charge of all the prisoners, made sure that as many of them survived as they could. Okay. But afterwards, this book actually interviews him, even though because they're looking at level 5 leaders, who are the best leaders out there. And good companies have level 4 leaders, but they're talking about level 5, the next stage up. And they interviewed him for the book, and they said to him, look, why did you survive when so many other people didn't? And he said something along the lines of, because I'm a realist, the people that died were optimists. So the optimists were the people who said, look, I've just got to make it to Christmas, and then Christmas came, they didn't. I've just got to make it to Easter, I've just got to make it to summer, and then be out. I've just got to make it to Christmas. And then another year would go by, and then they would just give up and lose all hope and then just die. Because whereas he said, look, I'm going to be here forever. And I think the Stockdale paradox, it really does apply to marketing, because everyone's always just looking for this next campaign that you can run, or that will just blow open everything. That next AdWords thing, that next LinkedIn ads or Facebook ads thing that will just change everyone's fortunes. But when I look at all of our clients that have come in over the years, they've come from so many different sources. And I kind of feel it's there isn't just one thing you can do.
You've got to do a bit of everything, right? See what sticks. If it's working, great, push it a bit more, but don't forget the rest. I think we've been guilty of that in the past, of really doing really pushing one thing, then stopping that and pushing another thing. Now it's just trying to tick as many boxes as we can.
A lot of it comes down to it's a cash flow game, really. Yeah. Well, cash flow is never a game, but it's you identify things that can work, and especially when you're 10 years into a business, like we are, I guess, almost 10 years, and you're almost 12, then one of the things you finally realize is everything works if you do it long enough and consistently enough. Yeah. And then it's just so before we'd expanded our marketing so much, but now our marketing team will tell you we're kind of scaling back a little bit, and just because I think I've taken the view as I don't want to do as much stuff, but whatever we do, I want to make sure we're going to be doing it in 3 years' time.
Okay, yeah.
And so that's about trying to conserve enough cash flows to be able to just do a few things longer and better.
Yeah. I think one thing I've really taken from it is consistency is key. Just keep doing something, and we've started recycling older things now. We don't have to do brand new stuff all the time. Actually, it may not have hit the mark then, but now we've got more followers. Now it might hit a different audience or a different person. And there's a principle that Daniel Priestley. There's all sorts of ones, but I think it's 11-7-4. So you've got to see something 11 times, have engaged with it in 7 hours, and then I can't remember what the fourth one was, but it's volume of content, right? It's not just you rarely see just that one thing and act on it straight away. You'll act on it, interact with it, and then you'll start seeing more of it, and so.
Maybe 4 is over 4 months.
Something like that, yeah. But it's a long time, right?
I haven't read that book, but if based on our own marketing, I've measured some of the clients that have come in through LinkedIn, for example, and usually if they're gonna the clients that it's kind of scarily they've got this in common, but it's pretty much the 4-month mark. Okay. Where they watched our videos for 4 months, and without a call to action, they've reached out after 4 months.
Okay. Yeah.
And Yeah, I mean, because I guess like if they see like 11 things overnight for 7 hours, then they might pick up the phone. But
no one's going to do that.
yeah,
I don't want to see my stuff for that long. There's one thing I watched Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary. I just called Arnie, I think, on Netflix.
Okay.
And his overriding mantra is "be useful," and that's really stuck with me. Is people want help, want support, and be. Don't want to be sold to, don't want to be told they're wrong or kind of do that. It's like, how can you be useful for people? And that's one thing that I'm really gearing our content around is what's going to be useful for people, what's going to be beneficial. How can we help as many people as possible without giving the keys to the cupboard? I think that's helped me focus on my content, I guess, is thinking, well, what are the top things we get asked? What can we answer? And then what would I find useful as a business owner?
And after that, what's your call to action?
Discovery call is the main one. Just see if we're a right fit, what their goals are. What we're launching soon is our scorecard.
Okay.
That'll help people give a bit of a barometer to where they are, and help us find out whereabouts are they in their sort of life cycle or their stages. Especially with the website, it's kind of...
So that scorecard, is that something they fill in some information for? And then okay.
And then we'll put them on a nurture journey, so we'll get some sent more useful content, As I say, it's same with sort of golden order networking. Don't sell to people, advise them. And if you give enough good advice, it's that kind of know, like, and trust principle, right?
Yeah. It takes a long time to build up, though, I guess.
It does, yeah. We've done for about a year. I'll be doing content every week in terms of articles. Started doing some podcasts as well, which we've got a load of them stacked up, ready to do.
What's your podcast called?
The Debrief.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's a good name.
It had a few different names, and we've settled on Debrief now. But it all takes time, and it's I've got my apprentice AJ, who's doing a fantastic job on that, but I'm focused on you're probably doing. You focus on the recording, but then you've got to pass it over to be delivered as a piece of content. There's a lot you can do. You can spend a lot of time doing stuff that doesn't work, right? But you just got to try it all. I think you're gonna and stick with the things. I think more than anything, I've stuck with things I like doing. I like writing, so writing a blog post is good for me. So.
Do you use a lot of assisted software? Like you've got Phrase and you've got like SEO Surfer.
Yes, to a degree. Yeah, I'll sort of run it through things like that. To be honest, Sprinkle will do that for me. So
I guess
it's over to them, and they're going to be fully aligned with our strategy anyway. I do use a couple of tools just to make sure I've got good sort of structure to it. I've got some good keywords in there. But more than anything, I'll just write naturally as I can. If I've overcome a problem. So email productivity, I did a blog on that the other day because I got back from holiday, then I was ill, my inbox was just getting ridiculous. So went back to some tools I'd used over the years, reminded myself they were there, went through them, I was like, do you know what, if this can help one other person, awesome.
Yeah, that's really good. And what proportion of your clients do you think really come from marketing at the moment compared to like word of mouth or networking as well, I guess?
I think networking and referral is still the biggest. We've really been focusing in a big way on content marketing for the last year, so it's still kind of early stages for us. We've re-engaged with clients, contacts we've had who've moved from company to another company. Yeah. So and that's because we've been present and visible on LinkedIn. It's interesting. We have a lot of people have mentioned our content but don't necessarily interact with it, and that's the thing. It's not about chasing the likes or the comments. It's
the lurkers.
Yeah, it's the lurkers. They're the ones who can get in touch. Yeah. So people who've never actually interacted with the content are the ones that contact us, which is great. It's, as I say, for me, it's about being useful. What can we help people with?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think with I've noticed that as well. Like so many people talk to me about our content, but I never see them on the likes or anything like that. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because in the end of the day, I guess platforms like LinkedIn and YouTube are getting so sophisticated that ultimately they can see how much of a video someone's watched.
Yeah.
So
impressions and stuff like that. Impressions for me is the metric to watch for me.
Yeah, I think like as long as they're engaging with the content, like it does get picked up. We found a really cool tool the other day actually. My business coach Amanda, she told us about it, but it's called like Smart Links.
Okay.
Because like in the past, like I've spoken to like lead forensics, and like they just want an extortionate amount of money.
It's a lot of money. Yeah, we looked at that. I did a trial.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but a bit creepy I found.
Well, you know what? For the record, I won't. When I say extortionate, obviously, if you get clients off it, it's not. Yeah. So it's just an investment. But Smart Links on, like, because we already had Sales Navigator, and we just had to pay like an extra £58 a month, and then you get the Smart Links, which, in my opinion, I think that's better than Lead Forensics, which wanted like about 500 a month. And like, this tells, when someone goes to your site, it tells you everything about them on LinkedIn. Oh yeah. So it's like, it's got it shows you who they are on LinkedIn. But I guess we do, like, we got 2 people in our marketing team, and that's, for a business our size, I think that's quite a big commitment.
It is, yeah.
But the other side of it is, we probably do a lot more stuff in-house that other people would outsource. Yeah. But the other side as well is like, we're really leveraging technology as well at the moment. There's some technology at the moment is just so impressive.
Yeah. We're looking at an app called Choppity at the minute.
All right.
Which you upload your video to. Using AI, it figures out what are the salient points, trims them, adds captions. You can then edit it. Bam, there's your social media content.
Holy crap! Really,
it's good. It's good. I think at the minute we're going in and we're tailoring it.
Yeah. Does it actually work though?
Yeah. It's good.
So what does that mean? You upload a whole podcast episode, and it will figure out what.
So a bit like we use Otter AI to process our videos to do transcripts.
To give you transcripts. Yeah.
And it figures out the summary, what times they are. It identifies the users. It's awesome. It's really good. And Choppity take it to a whole other level. It's fairly new. I can't remember what podcast it was on. I was like, I've got to check this out. We've just recorded a load of content. Let's look at that.
How much does it cost?
Not a lot. It's like £30 a month.
But I think unlimited.
No, I think it's based on like bandwidth. So like size of video. I think either length or sort of GB of video. But yeah, it needs interaction still. Yeah. But it'll go. Here's what we think.
That's pretty smart. Well, we'll look into that. Thank you. It's
and I've not shouted too much about it yet because we're still sort of trying it. But already I can see it saving us a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're creating clips all the time anyway, so it's we do that manually. But something like that sounds very useful. And how long are your podcast episodes in general?
We're trying to keep them around 10 minutes.
Okay.
The longest one I think is about 20. So the first one we did is we're doing a series with Chris at Spring Hill on what is SEO, like what if you're having to go yourself or trying to understand it. So the first one is kind of like showing the big picture of it, and then we're going through all the different points. And I think we're on the 6th video of 25.
Oh, amazing.
So I'd rather do 25, 10, 15-minute videos that are talking about one specific point. So like keyword research or metadata, things like that. So if people want to look at that one point, they can look at the conversation on that. But yeah, it's kind of just breaking down those things. I think we used to do a lot of video, more animation. We'd work with videographers as well. I loved it. I think what drew me to doing websites in the first place was I like to interact with things. I'm a brand designer by trade, from years back, but actually having things that move and interact, that was the magic for me. And through doing video, we did a lot of research. So the ideal length of a short video is 45 seconds. So like a product ad or something like that. Yeah. Any more than that, you've got to have something really gripping to keep people on for 2 minutes, And again, my own attention span, I'm hopeless. If I look at a YouTube video and it's like 15 minutes, I'm like, can't be bothered. So, but yeah, I guess, for me, I like multiple short snippets than one epic.
We always have this challenge. Like we're always like, can we justify having a podcast that's an hour and 15 minutes? It's look, I would love to have a podcast that was like 45 minutes long, and everyone's saying, that's what you got to aim for. But the other side of it is like, we had Sally Brown from Charlton Brown, and she's got 40 years of experience.
Yeah.
And
you can't distill that in that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Perhaps there's an argument for, splitting it down into 2 parts.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, like, we could split it into 2 parts, or people could just stop watching halfway through and then start watching halfway through again later.
Right, yeah.
It just, a lot of people say, well, it comes down to how long people commute for, the average commute to work.
Yep.
But then if they watch half of it on the way to work and then the other half on the way back.
Do you know what? This is one thing I really struggle with, because I do try with audiobooks. My attention span is awful these days. It really is bad. If I'm out walking, that's the best time. I try and walk for about an hour a day. That's the best time, but then my mind drifts, especially if it's end of the day. When I'm driving, it's good, but then if I want to make notes, I can't. Siri's not bad at taking notes, but it's not the best. It's setting that time aside for learning, I think.
But in terms of attention span, like that book, Good to Great and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yep.
They're difficult books to get into. Like the build up at the beginning is so long, and you're
7 Habits one, I must have tried that 6 or 7 times.
But you know what? Like I drove down to Italy recently in a motorhome, and I was like, I just got bored of the book after half an hour, and then I was like, so I stopped listening to it, and then like 5 minutes later, I was like, I've still got another 2 days of driving. Okay, I picked it back up.
Yeah.
And I kind of forced myself to get into it. And then when I was about a third of the way into the book, I realised, wow, actually, this is a good book.
Okay.
And I think sometimes it's like sticking with something you wouldn't normally stick with. But then, it was the fact I was driving. I had no other choice to listen to it.
Yeah.
If it was my everyday home life, I probably wouldn't have come back to it, and I would have missed out on some really important lessons.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, it's being aware that you might only get one real key point from any book.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess that's why I like talking to people about the books they've read.
Yes.
Because actually, if you can get that key point from them, but also actually, I like watching a lot of the videos online where, like, the Swedish investor, they're really good, where they summarize a book within 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
But then I realized actually, I've there's books where I've like watched the summary video, and then actually I go into then read the book or listen to the book afterwards. And I think it's by listening to the whole book, there's enough examples in the books that aren't always in the summary videos that actually, so even though you can get the takeaway point from so many other places, it's the way these books actually just like give you enough examples and proof that that make you retain that takeaway point and then utilize it.
Definitely. I mean, that for me, They Ask You Answer was the one for me. I mean, I was really inspired by the cinema. It completely spun my head on how we do our marketing. But the book itself is written into shorter points with actionable steps, and it's like a checklist. It's so easy. I can go back to that one chapter. All right, that's that bit. Done.
Yeah.
Great. So it's like a workbook.
I guess, is he the guy that created the concept of pumpkin hacking? Have you heard that before?
I've heard of it. It's not the guy who did the pumpkin plan, is it?
No, that's Mike Michalowicz. The Pumpkin Plan's a great book too, but pumpkin hacking, it's the idea that you find one blog post or something that's doing really well, and then you just keep doubling down on it and keep creating more content around it.
I'm sure he's talked about it, if not coined it. But I know that principle. Yeah.
So, you know what though? One thing I do really want to cover in this podcast. So you had like a interesting year last year. Do you mind sharing what happened?
Yeah, sure. So we had investors for a number of years, most of the life of DeType really. I think came in 2 years in. Really good relationship. We sort of had services going both ways.
Were they an accounting firm?
No. Property technology.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, one of the UK leaders, really phenomenal stuff. And then last year, they were selling up. So I had a matter of weeks to buy out my shares, and otherwise it'd go into, just, what would happen to them then? Someone else would buy them, or, what, I don't know. I was like, nope, okay. It was on my mind for a little while as, should that be a move to make? That came along. Shortly after that, rumours of a recession came along. Of course, marketing's the first thing to go. summer's quiet anyway. Various other things going on in sort of personal life as well. That ended up being sort of the most difficult 3 months ever. It really was tough for so many different reasons. And that was a point I was like, look, I've got this far. Is that it? Am I done now? Shall I go and live in the woods or, do something different? What's a stable industry? And I'm reading article after article about, how do you navigate these things? And a lot of them, it's like, the answer is, if you've got a business, it's going to be tough. Simple as that. You've got to make difficult decisions that are going to affect people, that are going to disrupt people's lives. And ultimately, it's just business. You can't, you can't get away from that. You've got to make those decisions because, and that's something Stephen Bartlett said on his first ever Diary of a CEO. First or second one is, if you don't make that one decision that affects one person, it could affect 10 or whatever. So you've got to make sure you're making the right moves. But off the back of it, through my network, mostly through BNI, actually, the support was phenomenal. People had either been there, done that. One friend of mine, he's involved in all sorts of different businesses. He's had investors. He's done a lot. And he's like
David.
No. I don't think you know him. And he really, really leveled my head out. Gave me some spreadsheets. I was very spreadsheet averse. Gave me some sort of ideas on cash flow and things like that. And it's like, look, there's options.
Well, what were you most worried about when that happened?
Sales had dropped off a cliff. I had a big team.
And then you were put in a position where you had to take all your cash reserves and use them to buy the equity back in your own business.
Yeah. So it was almost like a kind of reset. And
I guess, if you don't mind me mentioning, but we can cut it out. So you went from being a 40% shareholder to owning the whole business, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
And but from another perspective, I guess, you were already in a place in that business where you're probably quite comfortable, I'd imagine. Yep. So having all of this money disappear out of your reserves and savings, I mean, in the long term, you'll still get more dividends, really, won't you?
That's it. It was a hard storm to navigate, but I stuck with it. Glad I did. I kind of just poured myself in. I was working day, night, weekend. Yeah. Only really recently that I've stopped doing that because I've got burnt out, really.
So just hard work got you through. But then what were the mindset shifts?
Mindset shifts is, it's okay to fail. I think that's the biggest thing is I spent all this time doing it. It's my baby and it's failing. I've messed up. Well, everyone messes up. Steve Jobs got sacked from his own company, But yeah, I think the riding out thing, is an important one. It's difficult when cash flow is a problem. It's difficult when there's all sorts of emotions running wild. I had full support from my shareholders. They were super, super helpful. What was happening, but I got loads of advice and guidance. We're still working together to this day. So, I'm really thankful that it was such a smooth transition through all that. As complex and difficult and agonising as it was, for emotional reasons for me, I couldn't have asked for more support there, really. But then just having people sort of from outside of my industry and business altogether who just knew me as a person.
Do you feel you had a bit of a scarcity mindset before, whereas now you're convinced there's always more work out there?
Yeah, there's always more work out there. It helped my mindset shift into, do lots of things, do a little bit of everything. Don't spread yourself too thin, but don't just rely on one or two avenues. I think also getting the processes was vital to it. What happens at different stages. And there's one podcast I listened to, I always forget which ones, I listen to so many. It said have a disaster plan. If this happens, here's your first step. If that happens, there's your next step. So the idea is you should never get to step 5, say, because the moves you made in step 1 and 2 will negate that. So, do you need to reduce some of your overheads? Is there something different you can try here? Something like that. So it's some actionable things that you've got already in the list. And it's hard to do that when you're struggling. So, I think I'd definitely say to anyone, when things are booming, just think, something could spin itself on its head. And that's happened to me, in 24 hours, felt my world had been turned upside down. But actually, it's been a really, really positive thing in looking back. It was a move I'd toyed with making, but didn't have the balls really to do it, I suppose.
In terms of acquiring shares, buying back all the shares.
It's kind of, it's a lot of money to invest. As someone said to me, well, hang on, I grew it from nothing in the first place, so I never borrowed to invest. So actually now, now I'm putting my money into my business to make it survive, or to start it,
That's a good point, I guess.
That was a really interesting mindset shift in that it's like, okay, well, some people mortgage their houses to start a business, some people take a big bank loan. I'd never done that. So actually, okay, that's my time to do that.
I mean, for me, I'm always trying to weigh things up as well. Like sometimes, I've got certain rules where, like, that I give myself, although the business probably might not be aware, although they will be after this podcast. But like, I've always said, okay, I'm not going to push the business into a loss. No. But you know what? Sometimes to grow successfully, businesses do need to go into a loss.
Do you know what? That was one thing. One of my friends said. Like I say, he's had multiple businesses, different types of forms, and he's like, it's okay to have a bad month, a bad quarter, a bad year, as long as you're learning from it and you're making those course adjustments.
Marketing's always been the biggest killer financially, because the lessons you learn in marketing can be very expensive lessons.
Yes.
Like pay-per-click. Yeah. Like it's setting up campaigns that then don't work and then having to reset them. But then actually, you know what? If you think about it, most businesses probably don't market.
No.
Like they're still relying on word of mouth, or they'll be doing things. They might have small scale marketing, but actually to crack it on a scalable level, then
absolutely,
it's not meant to be easy.
No.
It's not meant to be cheap.
There was a study by Gartner. Who they said, if there's talk about recession or any problems in your industry, you got to market more than anyone, because guess what? Everyone's just putting their budget.
And I guess your marketing message now to potential clients is like, don't take your foot off the pedal.
But make it, and again, this is what we've, from doing it for ourselves and it being a success. And actually, I hadn't even considered it until a client said, "Oh, who does it for you? Would you consider doing it for us?" I was like, "Okay, this could be a thing. I enjoy doing it. It backs up everything else we do, but it's having the process and templates to do it, and that's what we're producing ultimately. So make it easy to do it. I get very bogged down in perfectionism and get it just right, but I've had to let all that go and said, you know what, it's good enough. It's for our own marketing. So iterate, launch something, test it, add bits to it. I was trying to build like the biggest sales and marketing funnel you've ever seen that was absolutely perfect, all these things. No, just start something and then iterate.
I'm like that book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's one of the habits is like the first things first.
Yeah.
And that's quite a good one. I guess I've been applying it a bit more recently. It's like, you know what, I do want to get salespeople in the business eventually, but before we do that, we've got to have enough leads for those salespeople. Yeah. And I think this is where a lot of people get confused between sales and marketing. Like, the salespeople aren't there to generate leads. They're there to upsell. They're there to convert.
Yeah.
And it's a very different skill set to lead generation.
Yeah.
And so, before we tried to get salespeople in the business, before we had our sales and marketing funnel working at the level where it needed to work to, and now we're getting buried with our sales and marketing, but ultimately we've still got some way to go. But I think, for us, like, that's one of the reasons we're trying to scale things back a bit, because let's just have these few things that we do really well. Yeah. And then look at expanding, but we might not need to expand, because sometimes, and this is actually like, one of the things that I'm always trying to convince people is don't have multiple brands if you can get away with it. No. Because what was that 11-7-4 thing you were talking about? Yeah. So 11 points of contact before you get that sale. Well, those 11 points of contact take resources. They take money. Yeah. And I've always, from a financial point of view, I've always tried to get people to understand. Look, getting 6 points of contact in 2 different places aren't going to get you over the line on either. No. Whereas if you're getting those 12 points of contact on one place will get you the sale. So, I've really been focusing on that as well. Like, where can we just focus on this one target market? Yeah. No, it's really good though. And in terms of like where you are now with the business, like there is, everyone's talking about recession, but they've been talking about recession since 2015 or 2016. I don't know. There is one due. Like if you look at the economic cycles, on average, there's one every 13 years. The last one happened in 2008.
Yeah.
So, or finished in 2009, I guess. So, yeah, we're overdue by about 2 years, really, aren't we?
Well, nearly every small business owner I spoke to last year, I thought it was just me. I was like, what have I done wrong? You know, like what's happened?
Yeah.
They had their worst year ever last year. So many people did, because there's, you know, it's like the fuel crisis in the media. Oh yeah, there might be a fuel crisis. There isn't, and then there is a fuel crisis because everyone's panicked. So we definitely had that in the marketing world, and beyond, really. I think
for us, we did grow, not in numbers of clients, but in terms of what we did for each client. Because one thing we've really worked hard to do all the way through this business is to work with good quality businesses, and they tend to need more support as they grow, and that's been good for us.
Yeah, definitely. Profiling, I think, for us is, you know, when your chips are down, you get desperation mindset. You know, I've got definitely a scarcity mindset of anything to pay the bills kind of thing, and it's detrimental long term, right?
It's about that's where business owners make the mistakes, because they'll do certain things that they can't undo.
Yeah.
I really observed it in probably 2008 in the last recession. All these businesses where they just trained their customers to expect discounts, like half price meals, half price this, deals on that. And I think, you know, especially when you're in an industry and everyone's doing that, it's so tempting to do it. But then, you know, my message to businesses is, instead of giving that discount, think about ways to add more value.
Yeah.
And that's a really important one, because in the end of the day, if you add more value, the value is probably worth way more than the discount you would have given. But it means that it solidifies that relationship. But no, so that's a good point. But the other side, I mean, there's two things that really affecting businesses now, because I guess you probably felt it with websites, they're a renewal a lot of the time. So people know they need to do something, but they don't know when they need to do it.
Yeah.
And I guess if people are just pushing off that decision, I mean, overall demand's probably not going to completely disappear. It's just they pushed back the decision. So if they would have got the new website in January,
that's what a lot we had, and then in March everyone was back.
Yes.
It's right,
because they hold off as long as they can, and from a business point of view, managing the capacity on that's a nightmare.
Well, there's a few things we did. We brought in a sort of a lower tier offering as well for starter websites.
Yeah.
You know, the concept of that is it's a smaller upfront fee and then a monthly fee. So you're still kind of paying the same overall over a year, but it actually gets them off the launch pad quicker.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's been really powerful for us, because we almost would turn them away.
Yeah.
But actually, they're a lot of them people we wanted to work with. You know, everyone was a startup at one point, right? So that was good, and so giving people options. There were some really good tips I heard from a friend through networking of, you know, give people options of different ways to pay or different structures. You know, not trying to bend over backwards to suit anyone, but having, here's 1, 2 or 3 options, which one suits you, was better, because we'd often put people off because we'd charge a 50% deposit, because, you know, it helps our cash flow. And
absolutely.
You know,
and it makes sure that they're committed up front, which means they comply and give you the information you need. And then
the last 50% is invoiced on first delivery.
Okay.
And even if you're missing a content from one page, we've done the work. You know,
yes.
So there's different things we set in last year, which help people. You know, we used to have websites kick around for a couple of years sometimes, because they're waiting on some content or a picture of someone. It's like, get it live. We can add it later. You know. So yeah, just making sure we had options was really important. I think, you know, just building up our comms was a big thing. We started doing a newsletter. Started engaging. Again, it's hard to maintain. We've had a bit of a gap on the newsletter. There's a new one coming next week. But, you know, when you're quieter, you can do more things.
Yeah,
last months have been absolutely slammed, which is great. Just taken on a new sales and account director who's hit the ground running, so that's really good. His background is digital marketing, so it's very much in our space.
I mean, one of the most important things, you like Action Coach, so I was. This would have been 2020. And I was just about to get into action coaching, as in work with one. I did in the end. Joseph Hunter, he's a good guy.
Yeah, I know Joe, yeah.
But I did that for about a year. But just before I started working with him, he sent me quite a good video, and it was about who's the guy that started Action Coach. Brad Sugars, yeah, the Australian guy.
Yeah,
all those.
So Brad Sugars was at the seminar that Marcus Sheridan was at.
Oh, was he? Did you meet him?
No, I didn't meet him, but it was like a powerhouse of people. Like, I was drawn for the marketing aspect of it. Food, they ask, you answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, phenomenal. Blew my mind. I was driving back from Birmingham that Wednesday night. I had B&I the next morning.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll have about 4 hours sleep. My brain's buzzing with all these stuff I've got to do. So.
Well, Brad Sugars, yeah, like this video, this was, he used to be involved in a business that sold motorhomes, like RVs in the States. And when the credit crunch happened in 2008, people just couldn't afford to buy the motorhomes. And he was talking about the importance of like pivoting, because then what they did was they arranged finance themselves, or they found funding themselves, and then actually got to a point where they started renting out the motorhomes to people instead, and or finding ways they could lease motorhomes instead. And I think, like, you know, people are talking about recessions now, and I was expecting one to have kicked in already, but the UK economy seems to still defy the world trends.
I still maintain there's a mini one last year, 100%.
Well,
Some
yeah.
people had the worst year in business, and people.
I mean, technically, like, I think the economy is still below its pre-COVID levels, like in terms of size.
Yeah.
So, but because the COVID was so dire, and then it bounced back, it was so dire and it bounced back. Then the 2 quarters of negative growth, that like condition hasn't quite been met.
Right.
So we are in a de facto recession. We have been for a while, but no one can actually call it that just yet.
Yeah.
But
what is the criteria for a recession, by the way?
2 quarters of negative growth.
Okay. Right.
But from what I understand, the negative growth is adjusted for inflation. So. Yeah, in theory, like, you know, if inflation's running at 10%, then they factor that in, because if the growth in the economy was only 9% and inflation's running at 10%, that would technically be a negative 1 point.
Got you. Okay.
Right. So, but the other side is, like, you know, supermarkets, they put their prices up 20%, and then other places they're putting their prices up. So just to some extent, like, the actual passing on of the inflation, a lot of the price industries increases in the UK have been above inflation. Right. So I think I'm not an economist, so I guess if anyone's listening to this, don't hold me to it. But my opinion from what I've read has been the price increases being pushed through to counteract the inflation are what is propping up the economy and stopping it sliding into recession.
Okay.
But then they're not. I don't know how sustainable they are. But that was the other thing I want to talk about, because, like, you know, well, the point I was trying to make there anyway was Brad Sugars. He talks about the importance of making sure your business can pivot in times of recession. Like, you know, always make sure you got something that people can buy based on the time. Like, you know. Well, I guess we got the Apex model. Like, a lot of people who have looked into it, there's two main components of it. There's the business modeling that we do, which is all about creating the blueprint for that finished business, because people need, you know, business plans are great, but you still need that financial blueprint. But the other side of what we do is the cash flow management, because you can say, hey, I've got 4 members of staff now, and I want to get the business to a point where it's got 10, and I want it to be worth, like, you know, 1 million. Yep. But actually, people can't do it overnight, so the cash flow is about the journey. Yep. And I think, you know, even when times are tough, like, you know, I built the Apex model for this to factor this in. Like, you know, people are, when they're not feeling lucrative, the business modeling and the planning side of it is not as relevant, because they're just in a place where they're kind of in a crisis mode. But when you're in a crisis mode, you still got to get your cash flows right.
Absolutely. I think, honestly, without the advice and support I had last year mostly from my sort of network community, I don't know. I might have got a job, but. But, you know, one thing that stuck with me, you know, I've built, you know, blood, sweat and tears got me here in the first place. Yeah. I'm not going to let it die. You know, I'm cracking on. And there's so many things I've looked back and I think that I'm doing now that if I'd done them at the start, wow, what a different place we'd be in, you know. So.
Yeah. Well, like one of the biggest challenges at the moment as well is the inflation. Like, you must have had quite a big increase in your costs.
Yeah.
I'd imagine, like staff, like.
Well, there's no better time to increase your costs, right? Because everyone's doing it.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, you know what? You don't want to be the last person to pass on your costs, because there's a period of time where everyone's just expecting it because it's the norm, and then and they're going to go and do it with their customers as well. So if you miss that gap, then you're the straggler, and then suddenly you're like I guess. I guess if you're the straggler and then you do it when no one else is, then that's when they've got time to really focus on it and challenge you on it. But, a lot of industries where you'd rely on good quality people in your business, ultimately, those good quality people, they need to be paid. And I guess if you want to pay those, the market averages, then you can have good quality people on average salaries, but then your business is going to be giving them other stuff, like other opportunities, a better work-life balance. But ultimately, like a lot of industries, like especially accounting, for example, like the costs have gone up disproportionately to inflation.
Right. Okay.
Just because part of it's the baby boomers, because HMRC have making things so much more harder now. Right. That a lot of the baby boomers.
It's never been easier with HMRC.
No, but it is getting harder, and like the baby boomers have just said, look, we're not playing this game anymore. They're just retiring early. Right. And like for the first time, I was talking to a broker the other day. I think there's like a lot more people trying to sell their accounting firms than people that actually want to buy them. Okay. Because those people are struggling to get the staff to take on the additional work. But it's interesting. But I mean, so have you definitely got like a plan to deal with inflation in your business?
Yes, we have. And also to plan increases maybe not year on year, but I think everything's going to go up every 2 or 3 years, right? So making sure we've got phased points of that. It's phenomenal. I've got more into spreadsheets than ever before. I've kind of got a new love for spreadsheets now. But yeah, having is look at the end goal. I'm working towards an exit plan. Always been doing something. I'll always be tinkering with this business or something. So your next step plan for you would be one day sell your business? I'm not. Yeah, possibly sell. Or it could just be do less. The one for me is do less.
Yeah,
that's the one, because I'm kind of obsessively productive, so I'll be doing something. I was like, do we go and live in Spain or Turkey or something like that? But what would I do? I'd get bored. I'd get bored. So I want something to sustain me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what's the one thing that keeps you up at night at the moment when it comes to business?
I think it's always been cash flow. Always been cash flow. That's so much better than it was.
When you've got to pay people's salaries every month, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah. Cash flow is the biggie, I think, for most business owners.
And can I make the guess then the way you deal with that is by managing the numbers and
managing the numbers, moving to more retained models.
Is that like in your industry that would typically be hosting and maintenance?
Hosting and maintenance, typically, but then content plans is part of that. It's an ongoing strategy. Again, it just ties into perfectly with what we do anyway. Yeah. But then also just having a regular audit of what we're spending. Mm-hmm. I'm a shiny object person. I'm like, oh, that's a cool app. Before you know it, there's 600 quid worth of apps that you're not really using. So keeping a quarterly account of them has been really important for me. I could say I used to concentrate just doing the work and never look at the account. That I've been on top of it the last few years, don't worry. But it's looking for just efficiencies everywhere, I suppose, to make sure cash flow is going to be easier in terms of follow-ups, invoicing on time, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So when you first started out in business, I know you had a tough year last year, but did you ever have any doubts your business would make it into your 12th year?
Do you know what? I never really had a long-term plan with it. I did when I was in my 20s, I had like goals, and then I kind of achieved them, and then I just kind of went with it really. We had so many good years of being busy, profitable. It was never never seemed to be a worry really. I mean, especially in lockdown, we boomed because everyone needed a website or redoing their website. So yeah, it could have just organically grew, but I didn't have a big plan. That was my big mistake really. So then a few years ago, I was like, right, well, I want to work towards some kind of exit, whether it's actually selling or just stepping away from it. You know, that was by the time I'm 50. So in 2033, I want to be a minimal part of my business. That's the big goal.
That's really good. Yeah. And do you have like a management team in place at the moment, or do you have someone who...
Getting there. Yeah, we've got Joe, who's our team lead.
Okay.
He's awesome. You know, I used to go on holiday, take my laptop and be like doing stuff. Last one I did, he ran the team, the whole team just took care of things. That's awesome.
I guess you can tell how automated your business is really by how many emails you come back to.
Exactly. And I think I had, especially because last year was so tough, we had a holiday in January which had been booked for like 18 months or something before.
Yeah.
And I was like, can I go away? It's only for a week. Like, I don't have to work because I've got to keep an eye on things. And I allowed myself an hour a morning before my wife got out of bed. I had a coffee on the balcony, checked my emails, got stuff done. And that was really valuable to me. I was like, actually, just doing that meant I could forget about it for the rest of the day. I've dealt with everything I needed to, and it's done. So I took my laptop away on my last holiday, used it once or twice the first couple of days to finish things I didn't have time to close off before I went on holiday, and then that was it. The team just nailed it. So that was the first time I think I properly had a relax and thought, actually, no, this could work.
Well, so we're almost 10 years old, but I think that this last holiday I went, where I drove down to Italy and back, it was 2 weeks, and that was probably the first time where I went the whole holiday without really thinking about the business.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, sorry, I was thinking about the strategy of the business and what I wanted to do, but like in terms of the operational side, I came back to 7 or 8 emails.
Okay.
And they'd already been dealt with anyway, but and it was quite good because it felt like a massive weight had been lifted. Like normally, like even earlier in the year, I'd been on holidays, but then I started phoning the team, and maybe because I got a bit bored, but actually this time round I didn't get bored. So it's partly the holiday, I guess. So normally on those kind of trips where you just go to an all-inclusive, it's easy just to overthink the business. Whereas when you go on like a trip that's a bit more of an adventure, you're kind of in the day-to-day.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, I think, the reason we're business owners is because we're entrepreneurs, it's we're kind of always thinking of always next things, right? So I think it's a very common thing. I think most, business owners are always thinking about stuff. It's actually not having to act on things while you're away. I think that's the true knowledge that you've built a company to a point that actually it can survive, without me for a period of time.
Sam, so I guess you're like during this podcast, you've been quite self-reflective.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people, especially for their first year or second year of running a business, they might be looking at what you've achieved in awe. Yeah. But
who knows?
It's. So what do you think is like one of the most important qualities of being a business owner?
I think very much empathy with other people. Don't think you know it all. Also, I think more than anything, don't overthink things. There's a balance of sort of confidence and then actually, what's the best way of putting this? My mind's gone blank.
Well, I guess you're talking about humility, aren't you?
Humility, yeah. So I think I'd really battled particularly in, when I was freelancing, I was booked a lot, I was good, I was fast, I could deliver on time, I was always asking for next bit of work. Being consistent in what you deliver is important, but also, really being yourself with it. And I think I really battled with LinkedIn and social media as a whole. My persona on Facebook is very different to mine on Instagram, it's very different to LinkedIn. And just sort of not overthinking it, just being yourself, not trying to play to a stereotype or anything like that. It's finding your own voice in it is really important. There's so many, web designers a 10 a penny. What's your angle on it? What's your difference? And I think that's one thing. I wish I'd really built more personality into what we'd done.
Yeah.
In the early doors.
As in focus on your personal brand a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I was kind of, I want it to be, you know, when you start a business, you always want to seem bigger than you are, right? So you're kind of a bit vague on who the team is, because it's just you, right? And then I kind of lost that, I think, a little bit in terms of who were we, you know, what are we doing, what is the big vision and value statements we've got. And I think, yeah, just you know, allow yourself to be yourself within it. You know, people either like you or they won't. It's as simple as that. You know, some people sort of start to get on board with people, but you know, people have an instant, you know, decision on if they're going to like you or not, and that's fine. That's okay. You know, be okay with a no. Be okay. You know, the more you focus on being yourself, the more you're going to work with like-minded people. The happier you'll be, the more successful you'll be ultimately, because you're building those relationships. I think that's one thing is, you know, trying to be all things to all people doesn't work, you know, and that's what we did very much in the early stages of the business is, yeah, we can do it. We'll figure out a way to do it. And we learned a lot, and then we figured out actually what we do want to do and what we are good at. So I think, yeah, having that humility, you know, don't overthink it. You know, don't be, like I say, I've always been like a bit anti-business in terms of kind of like, you know, suits and that kind of thing. Thankfully, the world's a very different place now. I think with working from home and stuff like that, it's opened a lot of conversations about actually it's that life-work balance, not work-life, it's life-work balance. You know, what do I want my life to be and how can work fit around that? So heard someone say the other day, right, they look at next year, put the holidays in first, book in their date nights or whatever it is, and then they fit the work around that. I was like, that's why I started a business, right? You know, you just think, I'll have more time, I can choose my rules. You know, when you're a business owner, you go for an interview every time you have a sales call.
Do you ever feel a bit guilty about like having too much of a work-life balance? Because I try and get our team to work hard, although I do encourage them to have a work-life balance as well. But sometimes I feel like I don't want to be taking too much time out of the business if I wouldn't expect them to do it.
Exactly, yeah. I've actually had to tell my team you need some holiday, take some time off, because, you know, you need it, everyone needs it. I suppose I struggle because you probably similar to me. I never properly switch off from it. There's always something. In an evening, I'll write some blog posts. Or,
actually, yeah, that's a good point, because I guess sometimes when sorry, not to make it about me, but sometimes when I'm on holiday, maybe I've taken more holidays than other members of the team, although I don't know, but I'm still learning stuff that will help the business. Yep. So like even though I mentioned this last holiday, I didn't really have to do any work, but
you're still thinking about it.
I was still thinking about it. I was still planning. Yeah. I was still gaining information that I was bringing back into the business. Yeah. And that's really cool. So, and then finally, Sam, if you had to give someone who's starting up, or if you were to start all over again, one bit of advice, what would that be?
Number one thing which I got from the email 100% is document and standard operating procedures. So start your business as if it's going to scale, right? Yeah. Because it's so much harder to put, 10 years of stuff that's in my head. We've got loads of SOPs now, right? And it's every day I'm writing more. Build your business as if to scale from the start, even if you don't want it to, because you never know that golden opportunity might come along, that big contract, that person you've reconnected with that could work with you. Build a system around your business all day long, because especially with the creative industries, it's like, I want to do this cool thing, and I'm like, but yeah, documentation, SOPs, that's the number one thing.
That's absolutely amazing. And if people want to get in touch with you after this podcast, what's the best way?
Best way, connect me on LinkedIn. Just Sam Sayat on LinkedIn, or our website is DeType.com. That's DETYPE.com.
Amazing. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's going to be an amazing episode. And everyone, you've been watching the Unrelenting Drive podcast. So remember to keep watching for future episodes.